The sun was hot, and the market was full of people buying and selling. But suddenly everything stopped. Fola's loud scream cut through the air like a knife. Heads turned quickly. There she was, being dragged by her hair by her husband, Leko. People watched, shocked and afraid. Some wanted to help, but no one moved. Why? Because everyone in the town feared Leko. He had a bad name. He was known for his anger, for his violence. No one wanted to be the next victim. Fola didn't scream for help again. Her eyes were full of pain, but she kept quiet. She didn't beg. She didn't fight. She looked around, hoping someone would step in. But all she saw were scared faces. Then her eyes met a child's, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing by a fruit stand. The girl's eyes were wide with fear. She held her mother's hand tightly, watching everything. Fola stared at the child for just a few seconds, but it felt like forever. In that moment, something broke inside Fola. Not her body, but her heart. She remembered being that little girl once. She remembered watching her own mother suffer and feeling helpless. And now, years later, she had become the woman others pitied. That single look from the child made her feel ashamed, but it also woke something up inside her. She knew this couldn't continue. Not for her, not for anyone else watching. Leko kept dragging her, shouting, not caring about the crowd or her pain. But Fola didn't hear his words anymore. Her heart was louder. It was beating with a new strength, a new decision. Right there in the middle of the crowd, in front of the fear, the shame, the silence, she made a promise to herself, a deep, silent promise. This was the last time. She would never allow herself to be treated like this again. No more tears in public, no more pain in silence. She didn't know how yet, but she knew it was time to change. Even as the crowd faded away and Leko pulled her into the shadows, Fola held on to that one, the little girl's eye. That memory stayed with her. It was the beginning of her fight, her strength, her freedom. From that moment, she was no longer just a victim. She was a woman with a plan, a woman who had finally opened her eyes. Something deep inside her had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same again. Days passed after the market incident, and Fola's body slowly started to heal. The bruises on her arms and face began to fade, but what didn't go away was the shame. It stayed in her heart like a heavy stone. Whenever she stepped outside, she could feel eyes on her. People didn't speak loudly, but their whispers were sharp. Some said she must have done something wrong to make her husband act that way. Others just stared in silence, shaking their heads. No one truly understood her pain. Even her own family didn't support her. They didn't ask how she felt. Instead, they told her to endure it and respect her marriage. They said things like, "It's how men are," and "You just need to be more patient." Fola felt completely alone. The people who should have protected her were the ones making her feel even worse. Leko, the man who hurt her, walked around like nothing had happened. He joked with his friends. He ate and laughed loudly at home. He never said sorry. He never even looked at her the same. It was like he believed he had done nothing wrong. That made Fola's heart ache even more. How could someone hurt another person so badly and still sleep peacefully at night? That night, Fola sat by the window of their small room. The rain was falling gently, tapping against the glass. She didn't move. She just stared outside, lost in thought. Each raindrop reminded her of the pain she had swallowed, the times she stayed quiet, the moments she wished someone would speak up for her. Her eyes were tired, but her mind was wide awake. As the rain fell, something began to change deep inside her. It was small at first, just a tiny voice saying, "You don't deserve this." That voice grew louder with each drop of rain. She thought about all the times she had kept quiet, all the times she had hidden her tears, all the times she had lied and said she was okay. Why? Just to keep the peace? Just to avoid shame? No more. Fola wiped her eyes, sat up straighter, and breathed deeply. This pain, this shame, she would not let it destroy her. If she had to cry, it would be for a reason. If she had to suffer, it would turn into strength. She promised herself again, not with words, but with a quiet fire growing inside her. This pain would not be wasted. She didn't know how, but one day she would rise from it, not just for herself, but for every woman who had ever been told to stay silent. Nobody really knew who Fola was deep inside. To the outside world, she looked like a quiet, broken woman who had accepted her sad life. But behind closed doors, in the silence of her small room, Fola was someone else entirely. She had a hidden gift, a quiet fire that no one had seen. She could design beautiful clothes. She had loved drawing and sketching outfits since she was a teenager. Whenever she felt sad or alone, she would pick up her pencil and draw. It gave her peace. It gave her hope. She had notebooks full of designs, each one filled with colors, patterns, and dreams. But she never showed them to anyone. She was scared of being laughed at, scared that no one would understand. So she hid her drawings under the bed, tucked safely beneath old clothes and boxes. It was her secret world, the only place where she felt strong. After the day Lecco dragged her through the market, something changed inside her. Her hands, which used to shake with fear, now moved with purpose. She pulled out her old sketches, wiped the dust off them, and began working again. She used needle and thread to sew her feelings into fabric. Every dress she made told a story, stories of pain, strength, and silent battle. She would cry sometimes while sewing, but she kept going. Her tears didn't stop her. They gave her power. She stayed up late into the night, with only a dim lamp lighting her small table. The sound of the sewing machine became music to her ears. Piece by piece, she stitched not just clothes, but her future, her freedom. Fola started using old clothes and leftover fabric. She didn't have much, but she was creative. She turned a faded wrapper into a stylish skirt. A torn blouse became a beautiful top. The clothes weren't just outfits. They were proof that something broken could become something beautiful, just like her. At first, no one knew what she was doing. Lecco didn't care, as long as she cooked his meals and stayed out of his way. But Fola wasn't making clothes to please anyone anymore. She was doing it for herself. Each time she finished a new design, she looked at it and smiled a little. Not because it was perfect, but because it was hers. She didn't have a shop or fancy tools, but she had her hands, her talent, and her fire. And with every dress she made, her confidence grew. She no longer saw herself as a victim. She was becoming a creator, a dreamer, a woman building something new from the pain she once tried to hide. Fola knew she couldn't keep hiding her talent forever. Deep down, she wanted the world to see her work, but she was scared. What if people laughed? What if no one liked her designs? Still, something inside her pushed her forward. One quiet evening, after Lecco had left the house, she took a few pictures of her best clothes. She laid them carefully on her bed, adjusted the lighting, and clicked the camera with shaky hands. Then, using an old phone, she created a social media page. She didn't use her real name. She made up a name that sounded strong, bold, and mysterious. She posted the photos one by one, writing small captions. No one knew it was her. She didn't tell her friends. She didn't even tell her family. Then she waited. For hours. Nothing happened. But by the next morning, her phone started buzzing. A few people liked the posts. Some left comments. Fola smiled, but she didn't expect what happened next. 3 days later, everything changed. A popular fashion influencer stumbled upon her page and reposted one of her designs with the caption, "This is fire. Who is this mystery designer?" That one post was like lighting a match in the dark. People started flooding her inbox, asking where they could buy the clothes. Some begged her to make custom pieces. Orders began to come in, one after another. It felt like a dream. Fola couldn't believe it. Her tiny room, once filled with silence and pain, was now full of fabric, colors, and hope. Every ding on her phone was an order. Every message was a reminder that she was good enough, more than enough. For the first time in a long time, money started coming in. It wasn't much at first, but it was hers. She used it to buy better fabric, better thread, and even a second-hand sewing machine. But more than money, it was her confidence that grew. She walked a little taller. Her smile lasted longer. She was no longer just Lecco's wife. She was a designer, a creator, someone with a voice. She didn't need to scream it. Her clothes spoke for her. She kept her secret safe, not ready to tell the world who she really was. But in her heart, she knew. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was rising, slowly but surely. And this time, nothing could stop her. The girl who once cried in silence was now being celebrated in secret. And that, to Fola, was the beginning of everything. While Fola was quietly building her new life, something strange started happening to Lecco. The same man who once walked with pride and power now began to fall apart. He lost an important contract at work because he came late and shouted at his boss. He no longer had the respect he once demanded. People who used to greet him with fear began to avoid him. He started drinking more, spending late nights in bars, trying to feel important again. But alcohol made him worse. He became angry all the time. He picked fights with strangers, trying to show he was still the tough man he used to be. One night, in one of those bars, Leko made a big mistake. He slapped a young man during an argument, not knowing the boy was the son of a powerful politician. Within hours, the police were called. Leko was arrested, and the story made it to the news. It spread like wildfire. Everyone was talking about it, but that wasn't the only thing going around. Somehow, a video of Leko dragging Fola by the hair in the market months ago had also resurfaced online. Someone had recorded it that day and finally decided to post it. The video was painful to watch. Fola's face, full of sadness, the crowd watching in silence, and Leko pulling her like she was nothing. The same man who used to act like a king was now being seen as a monster by the whole world. People were shocked. Women's rights groups started speaking out. Reporters called it shameful, and activists demanded his punishment. Suddenly, the man everyone once feared was being hunted by justice. He wasn't strong anymore. He was scared, hiding, begging people for help. But no one wanted to stand by him now. He had burned too many bridges. Fola, who used to live in his shadow, stayed silent. She watched everything unfold from a distance. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just worked harder, stronger, better. While Leko's name was dragged in the mud, hers was beginning to shine quietly under her fake identity. The world was changing, and for the first time, it was not in Leko's favor. He had always thought he could get away with anything, that no one could touch him. But now, reality was teaching him a lesson. Actions have consequences, and no matter how powerful someone thinks they are, when the truth comes out, it hits hard. Leko's downfall had begun, and there was no one left to save him, not even Fola. Leko, once the man who dragged Fola by the hair in public, now looked like a shadow of himself. His eyes were tired, his clothes dirty, his pride broken. After his arrest and the viral video, no one wanted to help him. His friends disappeared. Even his family avoided him. He had no job, no money, and nowhere to go. And so, with his head low, he came back to the woman he once hurt so deeply, Fola. He knocked on her door, not with anger, but with desperation. He begged her, "Fola, please, I need help. They want to keep me in prison. I don't have money for bail. I'm hungry. I have nowhere to sleep. Please, talk to someone for me. Use your contacts. Help me, just one more time." But Fola didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't even look surprised. This wasn't the first time he had come to her in need. But this time, everything was different. She wasn't the broken woman he used to control. She didn't flinch at his voice. She didn't shrink in fear. She stood tall, calm, and quiet. Without saying a word, Fola walked into the house and returned with a white envelope in her hand. Leko reached out, thinking it was money or maybe some documents to help him. But when he opened it, his face changed. It wasn't help. It was the end. Divorce papers. He looked up at her, shocked. "Fola, what is this? You're divorcing me." She still didn't say anything. Her silence was louder than 1,000 screams. It told him everything, that she was done, truly done, that she didn't hate him anymore. She didn't even care. She had healed, grown, and moved on, and he was now just a man from her past. Leko stood there, unable to speak. He had come expecting pity. He thought his tears would move her. He thought she still needed him. But what he saw was a woman who had found her strength, not with loud words, but with quiet power. The silence in that moment hit Leko harder than any insult, any slap, any punishment he had ever known. It reminded him of how far he had fallen, and how far she had risen. Fola didn't shout, didn't argue. She simply turned and walked away, closing the door gently behind her. And Leko, he was left standing there, holding the paper, with nothing but his shame to keep him company. Fola stood backstage, her heart beating fast. The lights, the music, the crowd, it all felt like a dream. She could hardly believe she was really here. Just months ago, she was hiding bruises and sketching clothes in the dark. Now, she was in Lagos, ready to show her designs to the world. The fashion show had invited her after her online designs caught everyone's attention. People wanted to know who this mystery designer was. When they found out it was Fola, a woman with no big name or famous background, they were shocked, but impressed. Her work was bold, colourful, and full of emotion. You could feel her story in every stitch. The show began. One by one, the models walked out, each wearing a piece from her collection. The crowd went silent at first, taking in the beauty of the clothes. Then the applause started, soft at first, then louder. People were standing, cheering, taking pictures, clapping not just for the designs, but for the story behind them. Fola watched from behind the curtain, tears filling her eyes. These were the same outfits she used to draw on old papers, hiding them under her bed so Lecco wouldn't find them. The same dresses she made at night while fighting pain and sadness. And now they were shining under bright lights, on proud models, in front of people who saw her worth. Her fingers, once bruised and trembling, had now created something powerful, something beautiful. She had turned her pain into art. She had taken back control. Then, as she stepped out to take a bow, she saw someone in the crowd, a small boy, now a little older. He stood with his mother, watching her with wide eyes. It was the same child who had seen her that awful day in the market, the day Lecco dragged her and no one helped. Their eyes met again, but this time was different. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was strong, proud, and shining. The boy smiled, and that smile told her everything, that she had inspired him, that he remembered, and that maybe he now saw a world where no woman should be hurt and silent. Fola bowed deeply to the crowd, holding back tears, not of sadness, but of joy. Her journey had been hard, but she had made it. This was her moment, and she was ready for more. Fola stood in front of a small building with a big sign that read, "Rise Again." Her eyes filled with emotion as she looked at it. This wasn't just a place. This was her dream, now real. The same woman who once cried in silence now built a home for others who were hurting like she once did. Inside the center, everything was simple but full of love. There were sewing machines, quiet rooms for rest, shelves of fabric, and bright walls with messages of hope. Women of all ages sat together, some still healing, some already smiling again. They were learning how to sew, but they were also learning something even more important, how to believe in themselves. Fola taught them gently. She never shouted, never rushed. She remembered what it felt like to be broken, and so she handled each woman with care. Some of them came with bruises on their skin, some with scars in their hearts. But as days passed, their hands grew steady, their voices louder. They weren't just sewing clothes, they were stitching their lives back together. She gave them more than just a skill. She gave them courage. She taught them how to speak up, how to look in the mirror and smile again, how to tell their stories without shame. And slowly, their pain became power. Many women who came to the center couldn't even speak on the first day. They looked down, afraid of being judged. But weeks later, they were laughing with others, sharing their past, dreaming of the future. Some started their own small businesses. Some went back to school. Some just stayed to help the next woman who walked through the door. Fola would often sit and watch them from a corner, her heart full. She didn't need applause or headlines. Seeing a woman stand tall again was enough. That was her reward. One day, a woman came to her and said, "Because of you, I didn't give up." That simple sentence made all of Fola's pain worth it. Her wounds had given birth to something beautiful. She had turned her suffering into a light for others. Fola didn't just change her own life, she became a guide for many others. Rise Again was more than a name. It was a promise that no matter how deep the pain, healing was possible. That every woman, no matter how broken, could stand again, stronger and wiser. And every time a woman walked out of that center with her head high and eyes bright, Fola knew her circle was complete. She had survived, she had risen, and now she was lifting others with her. Months had passed since Fola last saw Lecco. Life had changed so much. She was now a well-known fashion designer, a voice for women, and a symbol of strength. Her name was mentioned on radio and TV. People loved her story, how she rose from pain and built something beautiful. But deep inside, she always knew one day he might return. And he did. It was the evening of her biggest event yet, a charity fashion gala to support her shelter. The hall was filled with lights, music, and people clapping for her. Cameras flashed, models walked proudly in her designs, and guests were moved by her story. Then from nowhere, chaos. Lecco appeared at the entrance, looking like a ghost from the past. He was thin, dirty, and angry. His eyes were wild, his clothes torn. He pushed through the crowd, shouting, "She wouldn't be anything without me! I made her! I gave her story!" People turned, confused and shocked. The same man they had seen in viral videos now stood before them, trying to ruin her moment. Security rushed to stop him, but he kept yelling her name. "Fola! Tell them! You were nothing without me!" But Fola didn't run or cry. She didn't hide. Instead, she calmly stepped down from the stage and walked toward him. The room went silent. All eyes were on her. Even Leko stopped shouting when she got close. He looked at her, the woman he once dragged through the market. But she was not the same woman anymore. She leaned in, and with a calm voice that carried more weight than any scream, she whispered in his ear, "You tried to break me, but you built a fire instead." Leko's face froze. He didn't know what to say. The strength in her voice, the peace in her eyes, it broke something inside him. Security took him away gently, but the damage was already done. Not to Fola, but to him. The crowd erupted into applause. Not because he was removed, but because she stood tall. She didn't fight with hate. She didn't shout. She showed him that he no longer had power over her. She was free. After that night, people didn't just talk about her clothes. They talked about her courage, her grace, her strength. She had faced the man who tried to destroy her and proved that healing is louder than hurt. That silence, when filled with power, can shake the world. Fola didn't need revenge. Her success was enough. Her peace was enough. Her life now was the answer to everything he ever tried to take from her. And as she returned to the stage, smiling and proud, it was clear she had won. The hall was silent as Fola stood on stage, lights shining on her face, the Woman of the Year award in her hands. People had watched her journey, from pain to power, but now, seeing her in that moment, they truly felt the weight of her story. The same woman once dragged through the market like a piece of cloth was now standing proud, graceful, and unshaken. The host handed her the microphone and asked, "Fola, after everything you've been through, what gave you the strength to rise?" Fola paused. She looked at the audience, at the cameras, at the world watching. She took a deep breath and smiled gently. Then she said, "The day I was dragged in public was the day I was reborn, not as his wife, but as myself." The words hung in the air. A wave of silence spread through the room. Then slowly, the crowd began to rise. One by one, people stood on their feet, clapping. Some had tears in their eyes. Others held their chests, moved by the power in her voice. It wasn't just what she said. It was who she had become. She wasn't standing there as a victim. She wasn't standing there as a fashion designer. She was standing there as a symbol of hope, of freedom, of what happens when a woman refuses to stay broken. Her voice had once been quiet, hidden behind fear and pain, but now it echoed like thunder, not angry, not bitter, but strong, clear, and full of peace. Cameras flashed, social media lit up. People shared clips of her speech with captions like "Unbreakable," "True Queen," and "From Tears to Triumph." Even those who didn't know her began to feel connected to her. That night, she didn't just win an award, she gave others permission to heal, to speak, to rise. And as she walked off stage, her award in hand, people reached out just to touch her, to say thank you. She smiled at them all, remembering where she had come from, the bruises, the tears, the quiet sewing at night, and she knew it had all led to this. Fola had not just found herself, she had become a lighthouse for others. The ending stunned everyone, not because it was loud or dramatic, but because it was real. It was powerful. It was proof that even from the darkest places, something beautiful can rise. And Fola, once silent, was now a voice that could never be forgotten.